Well, this morning, I want us to take just a few minutes to consider the following question. What does faith look like? What does faith look like? Well, what do you think? What should faith, real, authentic, world-transforming, life-altering, extravagant, totally devoted faith look like? Well, as you sit back and try to imagine that picture in your mind, I thought that I would project up on the wall behind me some possible alternatives that might prime the pump just a little bit. Does faith look like this? I won't tell you whether I've ever seen something like that as I look out on faith on Sundays. Or does faith look like this? Or what about this for faith? Or is this a better picture of faith? How about this? Or does extreme faith look like this? So much for my pictures for this morning. I hope they have been provocative and evocative as you sit back and think about what faith looks like. So do any of those photos do it for you? Do they capture what total commitment looks like? I ask these questions because I think that Luke in our New Testament lesson would have each one of us imagine what totally consuming, extravagant, obsessive faith might actually look like. Luke paints his picture of an all-consuming faith in Jesus Christ as he shares with us the story about Jesus, the sinful woman, and the Pharisee named Simon. And the story goes like this. One day, Simon, the Pharisee, invites Jesus to eat at his house. As Simon, Jesus, and the other guests gather around the table, a city woman, who Luke identifies only as a sinner, enters and kneels at Jesus' feet. She lets down her hair and bathes and anoints Jesus' feet with ointment from a fine alabaster jar and with her own tears. She dries Jesus' feet with her own hair, and she repeatedly kisses Jesus' feet. She will not be stopped. She will not be dissuaded. And even after the initial cleansing and anointing of Jesus' feet, the woman still won't stop. She keeps kissing Jesus' feet over and over again. She is a one-woman snogging machine. And I know that you and I don't live in ancient Jewish times. And I know that we're not so familiar with ancient Jewish culture of that day. But I bet you and I still get the picture. We understand. This woman is not doing the typical thing. She is not behaving customarily as a guest at a dinner party, particularly one who is not on the invitation list. This woman is making an extreme spectacle of herself. This woman is so enamored, so devoted, so carried away with her love for Jesus that she is making a fool of herself right in front of God and Jesus and a whole room full of people. This excessive love and devotion that this woman shows to Jesus makes everyone who sees it feel uncomfortable. You and I picture the scene, and we hear the story, and we understand this woman with the alabaster jar is nuts. She's crazy. She's fanatical. She is excessive. You and I and Simon the Pharisee love Jesus just as much as anyone else does. We tell ourselves just as much as this woman with the alabaster jar, but we are Presbyterians. We are Pharisees, for goodness sakes. And we would never find ourselves kneeling down, crying uncontrollably, and dumping incredibly expensive ointment on Jesus' feet and then drying them with our own hair and kissing him uncontrollably. I mean, we are God's frozen chilies. We find it hard to chuckle in church. or to crack a smile. You and I pride ourselves on doing things decently and in order. We pride ourselves on having a controlled faith, a measured faith, a neat, clean Sunday morning, sitting in the pew with the air conditioning kind of faith. And so you and I think, we're a little bit than just a little more sympathetic in this story to Simon, the Pharisee. We're sympathetic to his response when he says the equivalent of, "For goodness sakes, Jesus, this woman has got to get a grip of herself, and you have got to tell her to get a grip of herself, to control herself, to stop this spectacle. It's downright obscene. And furthermore, it is making all the guests at my party lose their appetites. And do you know how much kosher chicken costs these days?" I think that you and I are just a little sympathetic with the character of Simon the Pharisee. Simon is, after all, the voice of reason. Simon is the voice of practicality. Simon is the voice of decency and propriety. Simon is the voice, I think, that speaks to us. He's all about loving Jesus, listening to Jesus, throwing his life in with Jesus. Just doesn't want to get too carried away by Jesus. Doesn't want to lose control. He doesn't want his devotion to Jesus to become inconvenient or uncomfortable, or to disrupt his middle-class Galilean lifestyle. And despite the fact that Luke doesn't tell us the cost of the ointment in the alabaster jar which the woman poured on Jesus' feet, in John's telling of this same story, we are reminded that it cost 300 days' wages. And even if you only make $9 an hour, a little bit more than minimum wage, the puddle at Jesus' feet cost right at $18,000. Is it any wonder that Simon is shocked and offended? What would be the reaction at our next Star Mount Church Treasurer's report if it contained an $18,000 charge for air freshener for the sanctuary? And what if the only explanation that Libby could give us is that, well, somebody told me that they wanted to show their love for God and make the sanctuary smell really nice? She might get in just a little bit of trouble. You and I, we are far more practical than this. You and I are far more clear thinking than this. We are rational people who weigh our alternatives and do things logically. We do only what is prudent, only what is reasonable, only that which will not make us stand out in the crowd. And we are Scots Presbyterians, for goodness sake, and we know the value of every dollar, 50-cent piece, quarter, dime, nickel, and penny that we have ever earned. And we know how we give. When you and I give, we want to spend a respectable amount, but we don't want to go overboard. And so we often play the game whereby we try to figure out how much we think that the other person is going to spend. You know how it goes, right? If you think that they're going to spend about $50, then we would be embarrassed if we only spent $10 for a gift for them in return. But we would feel just as foolish if we spent $100 on them. I mean, that's not right either. And it's not just about the money thing. Think about it. You and I probably love reasonably in other areas of life as well. Have you listened to a 13-year-old discussing her love life? And I know they don't discuss their love life anymore, they only text it. But it still would go something like this. Come on, Jennifer, you go over and ask Adam's friend Michael if he likes me. And then you could tell Adam that I like Michael. But don't tell Adam that I like Michael until he tells you first whether Michael likes me or not. It sounds a little convoluted and childish, but I bet it's pretty familiar. You and I love the people who love us back. We give, but only as long as we're getting. We follow Christ at a reasonable distance. We even call ourselves Christians, But heaven forbid that someone think that we are fanatical, exuberant, obsessive about our faith. We have faith, but we want it in small, measured amounts that are unlikely to cause us to break as much as a smile on Sunday mornings during church, or interrupt our most excellent plans during the rest of the week. After all, living for God for 1 hour once or twice a month sounds about right.